Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Beruchim Habayim. We're continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we're on Daf Yud Dalet, Amud Bet, 5 lines up from the beginning of the white lines by 2 dots. V'tameh sha'achal et HaKodesh. Today's Amud is being learned in memory of Esther bat Naftali Tzvi Levi, and also as a zchut for Yehuda ben Asher and Anael bat Zipporah, Mala Shemet Kol Mishalot Dibam Letova Be'ezrat Hashem Amen. The Amud is dedicated for Refuah Shelema of Mordechai Afshin ben Shoshana Shahnaz, also dedicated for the Refuah Shelema for the recovery of Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, that should have full recovery. Refuah Shelema Be'ezrat Hashem Amen. This month's learning of the community has been sponsored by the Dayan family, by Kohen family, by Shei families. Should be an ultimate zchut for all of their families. Hashem should give them ultimate hatzlacha be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Okay, so we are halfway through the topics that we started in the Mishnah. Lots of back and forth, ve'idach, all the limudim of where we learn everything that it is mentioned based on the 3 different shitot of the Tanaim that the Gemara mentioned. Now we're going to have half a Amud doing some more of the same, basically, in the next item that's mentioned in the Mishnah of a person that would eat something that's not halachically proper for them. An individual who is tameh, who has become impure, is not allowed to eat kodesh. And if you do, then, you get karet, but that also is one of the items that gives you malkut. That's what the Mishnah mentioned. So we're going to go through this, and again, it's going to be a lot of fundamentals, fundamental concepts in Shas, and a lot of back and forth. We'll try to do what we do, to go through it methodically and at the same time quickly. Says the Gemara, "V'tameh sha'achal et HaKodesh," an individual who has become spiritually impure, came in touch with some sort of tum'ah. If he eats kodshim, then he will get malkut. Says the Gemara, Bishlama, the Mishnah mentioned more than one item for a person that is tameh, right? If you go back to the Mishnah, we had hatameh sha'achal et hakodesh ve'haba el hamikdash tameh. A person who is tameh, who enters the makom hamikdash, he gets malkut. And also the same person who is tameh, if he eats kodshim, he gets malkut. The Gemara says, one of them I'm good with, the other one I have question. Now, you remember that we spoke about a concept of en onshin elaim ken mazhirim. Every onesh in Torah needs an azhara. You can't just say, if you do this, you get malkut. If you do this, you get death penalty. You can't do that. It has to be a place in the Torah that it tells you, don't do it. And then you could have, if you do it, you'll get punished. You can't punish without warning. So you have to be able to, by every punishment, find a place that the Torah has already warned you about it. So it says in Gemara, surprisingly, you would think eating kodshim should be pashut, and coming to the mikdash shouldn't be. But surprisingly, it's exactly the other way around. Coming to the mikdash, to the makom kodesh, when you are tameh, it's explicitly mentioned. No problem with that. It says that you can't do it, and it says if you do it, you get punishment. But by eating kodshim, it says you get punished, you get karet, but there's nowhere that explicitly, nowhere in the Chumash, that explicitly says you cannot eat kodshim if you're tameh. We think there's so much that's written about kodshim, it should be explicit. It's not. And when I was going to spend the entire Amud going back and forth, scratching our heads, where exactly do we see in the Torah that you can't eat kodshim, you can't eat besar kodesh if you are tameh? So says the Gemara, "V'tameh sha'achal et hakodesh bishlama," says the Gemara, I understand, haban lemikdash tameh. a person who's tameh who comes to the mikdash, ktiv onesh, it says the punishment, but it also says the azhara, it says the warning. Onesh tichtiv, the punishment, it says in the pasuk, et mishkan Hashem timeh v'nichreta, says this person has defiled the mikdash of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he will get karet, right? So the full pasuk is, Kol hanogea be'emet b'nefesh ha'adam asher yamut. A person that has come in touch with corpse, v'lo yitchata, and he has not gone through mechatat, a process of 7 days of tahara. Third and seventh day, you would get sprinkled from this ashes of parah aduma mixed with water, mechatat. If you didn't go through that process, and you come to the Mishkan Hashem, to the Makom HaMikdash, oy va'avoy, et Mishkan Hashem timeh v'nichnata ha'nefesh ha'im Yisrael, ki men nida lo zorak alav, tameh yeh ot tumato bo. That's a clear pasuk that does not say you can't come to Mikdash, just as if you come, you get karet, right? So that's onesh. But we also have azhara clearly mentioned. Azhara, v'lo yetameu et machanehem. The Torah says a person that's tameh is not allowed to come to Machne Shechina, which the full pasuk is, mizachar ad nekavat shalechu el michus lamachane. A person that comes in touch with tum'ah, whether he is a male or female, you have to send them out of the machane. Velo yetameu et machanehem asher ani shochen betocham. Do not defile the machane that I dwell in, which is talking about machane Shechina. So you have clearly a directive that the person that comes to me, you send him out of the machane, can't enter machane Shechina. So you have onesh, but you have azhara clearly. Last narrow line. But the person who is tameh, who ate kochim, so Bishlam, I understand it says clearly the onesh, the punishment is clear. It says nechumash v'hanefesh asher tochal basar mizevach hashelamim, a person who eats from zevach hashelamim asher lashem ve'tumato alav, while being tameh. So what happens to him? V'nichreta, he'll get karet. So that we know. The Chumash says that explicitly. But how do you know that you can't do it to begin with? It says Machloket Resh Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Resh Lakish Omer, Resh Lakish says, well, I find the pasuk that talks about a person who is tameh and a prohibition against eating kochim. Now it could be a different tum'ah, not this type of tum'ah, but a woman who gives birth also becomes tameh. And about her, the pasuk says the following: Bechol kodesh lo tiga ve'el hamikdash lo tavo. The full pasuk again on the side I'm reading: Ushloshim yom ushloshet yamim teshev b'demet tahara. When she gives birth, right? 30 days she is sitting on demet tahara on dam tohar, and during the course of those days, she cannot touch. Bechol kodesh lo tiga. She can't touch any kochim. Now later on the Gemara learns from Hekesh, from a biblical comparison, that this is talking about eating, not just touching, right? We'll talk about that. And she can't come to Mikdash at melot yemei tahor, until she is tahor. Good? So these days, this is talking about a woman that gave birth to a boy. So he has 7 days plus 33 days, 40 days subtotal. But those days she's tameh, and the pasuk says, Bechol kodesh, don't you touch kochim. Which we're going to infer that means eating. So says Resh Lakish, well, it says it. I found the pasuk that says you cannot eat kochim when you're tameh. What do you want from me? Apply it to all the kochim, all the tameh, good to go. Sounds pretty good. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan doesn't like this. Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Tani Bardala. Rabbi Yochanan brings this in the name of a Chacham called Bardala. It's not so clear if he was a Tana or Amora, right? Bet Shmuel in Even Haezer, says that this was an Amora. Others, they say this was a Tana, really, because Rabbi Yochanan is first generation of Amoraim. So he was a student of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. But again, name of a Chacham. So he says, Tani Barda, Atya Tum'ato Tum'ato. We learned this from a Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava means you have identical words in the Chumash, and we have a Mesorah, we have a tradition that these two words are to be compared to learn halachot from one another. So if I know the halacha by one, I can apply it to the other one. Now there is a problem, as we'll see in just a line from now, in Gemara. You cannot, the only one of the 13 principles that you use to darshin the Chumash, 13 midot HaTorah nidreshet, like Braita of Rabbi Yishmael, that we say in the mornings, or we should say in the mornings, right? That usually you could use it yourself. Kal v'chomer, you could use kal v'chomer. It has laws. It has to be mufneh, this, mishteh stadim, mistad echad. There are laws of how you apply biblical logic, right? Or Talmudic logic, you should say. How you have a logical discourse based on the 13 ways that the Torah is explained. You could learn them and then you could apply them. But then there is one that you can't just do on your own. You need a chain of command of an unbroken tradition from Moshe Rabbeinu. And that is Gezerah Shava. Right? It's Gezerah Shava. Actually, the Tosafot, the Masechet Shabbat, Daf Sadi Gimel, the Tosafot, they explain that even the number of Gezerah Shavas in the Torah was given from Rebbe to Talmud. It's not that, okay, add one more, this person has a Mesorah. You can't. I think the question would be, why can't I just learn? Wow, how do you have all over Shas machloket of what is Gezerah Shava? So my Rebbe told me that his Rebbe told him, that his Rebbe told him, that his Rebbe told him up to Moshe Rabbeinu, that these two words are to be compared. You don't have that Mesorah. You don't have that tradition. So why can't you just learn it from me? Right? Because, well, you have your own Mesorah, and there is a difference. Somewhere, unfortunately, the concept of machloket is because something got, and you see in the Chumash, psukim that are, like, so you can find 3 different words that are the same. So when the Mesorah was, there are 2 words that are to be compared. It doesn't necessarily say this word from this pasuk with that word. The Gezerah Shava was that there are these 2 words, not from which pasuk to which pasuk. These 2 words are Gezerah Shava, and we learn a certain specific halacha from them, right? And that becomes something that leaves room for saying, well, I think it's this pasuk or that pasuk. So that's how you have machloket, and sometimes a Talmud did not accept it directly from his Rebbe, then he has to just stand by, and he can't use that because you can't use a Mesorah from someone else if it wasn't directly given to you. So it's a pretty complex concept, unit, probably the most interesting one in terms of the fact that it has to be an unbroken chain of command that you accepted from your Rebbe. Now, you see, in our specific case, it becomes even more strange in just a moment, but says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan said, well, this is Gezerah Shava. There are 2 identical words in the Chumash that they are meant to be compared to each other in terms of halachic ramifications, and this is from Moshe Rabbeinu. Says Rabbi Yochanan, Atya Tum'ato Tum'ato. There's 2 words, Tum'ato, that are to be compared. Ktiv hacha v'tumato alav v'nichreta. Over here it says, if you have Tum'ah and you get karet, and over there it says, Tameh yeh o Tumato bo. It will stay Tameh, and his Tum'ah will stay in it. It's the pasuk that we mentioned before, right? This is a pasuk. The second one is a pasuk of coming to the mikdash when you're tameh. And the first one is the onesh of a person that eats when he is tameh, eats kodshim. So says Rabbi Yochanan, well, it says,
touches, wasn't it? touches?
Say that?
We didn't have explicit one that say.
So we'll talk about that. We're talking about a person that eats kochim when he's tameh. The pasuk says you get karet, not the azhara, but the onesh, right? It says v'tumato alav. So you have tumato by onesh of someone that eats kochim betuma, and you have a tumato mentioned in the azhara of a person. The love that the person comes to the Machaneh Shechina, comes to the Makom Kadosh with Tum'ah. So this is Gavaldik, says Rabbi Yochanan. It's great because by a person, by the halacha of a person that comes to Mikdash, comes to Beit HaMikdash, when he's Tameh, he touched the corpse and comes to Beit HaMikdash, what's the halacha? Well, the two psukim. It says that he can't come, and he says if he comes, he gets karet. Right? So I know everything about it. But it says v'tumato in that, and guess where else is v'tumato? A person that eats kochim when he's tameh. By the onish. So says Rabbi Yochanan, you know why the Torah does this? It's coming to teach you to apply that just like by a person that comes to Beit HaMikdash when he's tameh, you have azhara and you have onesh. By a person that eats kochim when he's tameh, also you have azhara and you have onesh. Well, the Torah only says the onesh, but just like that one has azhara, this Gezerah Shavah is coming to teach you that you could apply the azhara of someone that comes to Mikdash when he's tameh to also apply to a person that eats kochim when he's tameh. So it says, I'm just going to read it now. Just like by the case of a person that comes to the Mikdash Tameh, you have Onesh and you have Azhara. Afkan, Onesh, Azhara. Here also you have Onesh and you have Azhara. So now the Gemara says, fine, this is beautiful. Sounds amazing. Why do you need two amazing things? Why each one of them rejects the other thing? Says Gemara, I could understand why Resh Lakish does not say like Rabbi Yochanan. Why doesn't Resh Lakish say like Rabbi Yochanan? Because Gezerah Shavah lo gamir. He doesn't learn Gezerah Shavah. What does that mean? I mean, yeah, now you need the background that we gave to understand what the Gemara said. What do you mean? He doesn't learn Gezerah Shavah. No, he can't. If you don't have a Mesorah from your Rebbe, then you cannot just make it up or accept it from somebody else. Now, why is this very strange? Because who was the Rebbe of Resh Lakish? Rabbi Yochanan was the Rebbe of Resh Lakish. So why can't you just now accept it from him? Right? So this actually very much rings a bell from a Yerushalmi in Masechet Beitzah, Perek Hey Halacha Bet, which is also brought into Tosafot in Masechet Bava Metzia, Daf Pei Daled Amud Aleph. The Gemara there says that Resh Lakish perhaps was not first-time student of Rabbi Yochanan. The Tosafot there say, based on a comment that Resh Lakish made, that Resh Lakish actually, well, because let me tell you the preface of why this is, without knowing the Yerushalmi and the Tosafot, why this is very strange. Because the Gemara says Resh Lakish was a head of bandits. He was a thief. Boy, was a thief, right? And he was once going to bathe in a river, and he sees Rabbi Yochanan that was bathing in the river, and Rabbi Yochanan was extremely beautiful. The Gemara says he didn't have a full beard. It says had he had a full beard, he would be one of the most beautiful human beings ever created in this world. Right? It's amazing. And Resh Lakish was extremely strong. So with one jump, he jumped into the middle of the river, and Rabbi Yochanan tells him, he says, Chelach leoraita. He says, your power is good for learning Torah, right? You could stay up 24/7, learn. Like, and he says to him, he says, Shufrach lenashi. He says, your beauty is good for a woman. So, oh, you like how I look? I have a sister that's not even nicer than me. If you commit yourself to learning Torah, I'll give you my sister. Right? Right? The deal is a deal. So he accepted to do tshuva. He left his illustrious job of being a head of the greatest bandits ever, and he became a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, and he married his sister. Rish Lakish was the Chavruta and the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yochanan. And their bond became so strong that there's not a page in the Gemara that you don't talk about them. And when Rish Lakish, in a devastating story, he passed away, Rabbi Yochanan became so depressed that he couldn't continue living. Right? That's the end of this story. But the Tosafot say it, and this is really a Yerushalmi, that Rish Lakish was an off-derech Talmid Chacham. He was really a student of Rabbeinu HaKadosh in the beginning. He learned by Rebbe, just like Rabbi Yochanan learned by Rebbe. Then he went off the path, and he realized rabbinate does not give money, doesn't have any parnasa in it. So he went to be a bandit, and then he did tshuva, and he became a Talmid Chacham again, right? So this is not the first time around. So now it makes sense why he doesn't learn Gezerah Shavah, because you can't. He already has a set thing of Gezerah Shavah that he learned from his Rebbe. Now you bring in, you introduce this Bardala, whether it's a Tana or Amora, however you slice that. Bardala was not my Rebbe. Somehow he ended up being your Rebbe, but not my Rebbe. I learned directly from Rabbeinu Hagga. I can't. Right? So that I understand, says the Gemara. I can understand why Rish Lakish does not learn like Rabbi Yochanan. By the way, you see from here, like, if you don't know the Yerushalmis and the Tosfots and this, you can't even make sense out of a basic Gemara, right? You'll get stuck in the first step of understanding Gemara. But again, I think we gave enough understanding of why this Gemara does make sense based on the principles of how the Gezerah Shavah should work. So I understand why Rish Lakish does not look like Rabbi Yochanan's Pshat, because he can't learn Gezerah Shavah. He has to have a pasuk. But why in the world doesn't Rabbi Yochanan like Rish Lakish? That sounds to be like a beautiful pasuk. According to Rish Lakish, it's an explicit pasuk that talks about a tameh, which is a woman that just gave birth. She is tameh for the 33 days of the Metahara. And the pasuk says, "Bechol kodesh lo tiga." You can't touch kochim, which we're going to see means eating. So why don't you like that? Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan ma'itama lo amar keresh Lakish. Why doesn't he learn like Resh Lakish? Amar lecha, says Rabbi Yochanan, hahu azhara letruma. Says no. You cannot do that. That is a very specific azhara. You cannot possibly learn from the pasuk that is mentioned by a woman that you cannot eat any kochim when you're tameh. That pasuk specifically is talking about truma. And it kind of makes sense, because what type of kochim does a woman eat? It's very difficult to find a scenario in which a woman is eating kochim. Right? But the one that a woman would eat normally is a wife of every Kohen, or daughter of every Kohen that's living with the father, right? They would eat truma. So that's what it's talking about. It's talking about teruma. So says the Gemara, if that's correct, Rish Lakish azhara le teruma menale. How does Rish Lakish, if Rish Lakish uses the pasuk that says about the pregnant woman who gave birth, so then where does he know that that woman cannot eat truma? So says the Gemara, nafkale mi ish mizera Aaron v'hu saru ha'ozav. He says that by Bnei Aaron, by male Kohanim, the pasuk says ish any man, mizera Aaron, v'hu saru ha'ozav, if they have tumat sarat or zav, and says the pasuk, they cannot eat kochim, right? Ish mizera Aaron, v'hu saru ha'ozav, ba'kodashim lo yochal ad asher yithar, v'anogea b'chol tamei nefesh. The pasuk talks about all kinds of tumah, but he can't eat kochim. So says the Gemara, Rish Lakish learned this pasuk in the following way: Izeu davar shu shaveh bezar'o shel Aaron. When it says ish mizera Aaron, why do you have to say so many words? Ish mizera Aaron. is comparing all of the Zerah Shel Aaron together. It's comparing all of the children of Aaron, men and women, boys and girls of Aaron. What is the one thing that all of the children of Aaron, all the Kohanim, despite being men or women, they come in contact with? Have Omer zu teruma. It's talking about teruma. So when the pasuk says, ish mizera Aaron, that he can't eat any kochim, what type of kochim is he talking about? Talking about teruma. Because talking about all, the umbrella isur of kochim for men and women from the children of Aaron. The only thing that they all share in kochim is the Kohanim are in the Beit HaMikdash, they eat kochim, the men. But that does not apply to women sitting at home. But there's one element of kochim that all of them share, and that is truma. When you have produce, right, you give 150, 140, 1/60th of it, depending on how stingy or how open-handed you are, right? That's teruma is tere mimea, 200th. So that's 1/50th. That's normal. People who are more generous, they would give 1/40th, and people who are more stingy would give the minimum would be 1/60th. And that's me, the Rabbi though, right? There's really even 1 grain. But that's teruma that goes to Kohanim. Who eats it? Well, anyone who is at home. Right? The children of Aaron, the woman, the wife of a Kohen, and the daughter of a Kohen, who is living with the household, also eats teruma. The only element of teruma, of kochim rather, that applies to women as it does to men is teruma. So says Rish Lakish, when the pasuk talks about all of the children of Aaron that can't touch kochim when they're tameh, they can't eat kochim when they're tameh, what is he talking about? Teruma. So that's when I know teruma. So when I have an extra pasuk on top of that, talking about a woman who gave birth who can't touch kochim, who's that? That, says Rish Lakish, I see from that a general blanket isur that a tameh cannot eat kochim. Because I already have a pasuk for teruma. You see how he does it? Rabbi Yochanan needs that pasuk by a woman that gave birth for the fact that a wife of a Kohen or a daughter of a Kohen cannot eat teruma when she's in tumat yoledet, when she's still tameh from giving birth. So says the Gemara, ve'idach, what does Rabbi Yochanan do with that? Hahu le'achila ve'ha le'negia. Says Rabbi Yochanan, yes, we need 2 psukim, one of them for not eating teruma, one of them for not touching teruma. If you are tahor, you could touch teruma. If you're tameh, you can't even handle teruma. It makes it tameh. So says Rabbi Yochanan, I need a azhara, I need a lav, I need an isur for touching teruma when you're tameh, and for eating teruma when you're tameh, even if you didn't touch it, right? So put it in your mouth. So that is how he learns it. Now, the Rish Lakish can go a little back and forth, and it's going to be a fascinating Gemara, which we're going to cover tomorrow morning. Chazak u'beruch.